Well, hello, Megan. How are you? How are you doing today?
Good, good. I love the podcast. I'm a big fan, so I feel honored to be on it.
Yes. Well,
I think you've been
I'm
one of our
happy to be
most
here.
loyal listeners from episode
Yeah,
one, I
I
believe.
love it. It
Yeah.
pops up on my car, and I love Tuesdays and Fridays. So
Yeah. Definitely one of our most loyal listeners, and it's good. So I said in the intro, but Megan's my sister, also a very talented real estate investor and a designer in Austin. But I always rely on her feedback because it's been a few times where I'll put it out there and I've listened to this podcast at this point for a few hours, and then I put it out, and then I'll get a text, "Hey, there's something wrong at minute 22 or something." It's like the music's off or this overlapped, and then inevitably Tavis will say something, and so I have a few people that
yeah,
luckily listen pretty early on, and then I can fix it and
I do a
kind
lot
of
of drop offs. So my kids go to different schools, so you know, there's a lot of time in the car that I spend. So it's fun.
yeah.
I like. It's
Well,
nice.
well, some of the warnings for language are specifically for Brooklyn and Lawson. So
Yeah,
if we ever have an interview that's a little bit over the top, I'll give the little
yeah,
warning for Brooklyn and Lawson out there. So
yeah.
anyway, so yeah, so why don't you get everybody up to date? Of course, we had Dustin on the podcast a while back, and your husband, and he was my broker for a while, and he has his version of y'all's journey, but y'all have done a lot together at this point. And so get everybody caught up on sort of how y'all started out with real estate and real estate investing, and then we'll talk about what your business looks at like now.
Yeah. So let's see, 2000, I guess it was 2013. We got married in 2012. 2013, we had a couple friend come over for dinner, and it was Dustin's brother-in-law's friend. And he was getting into construction, and he said, "Hey, y'all should listen to this Bigger Pockets podcast because it's a lot about real estate, and I've learned a lot. It's really motivating." And so anyway, so we started listening to it separately, Dustin and I, and it was exciting because we would listen to it and then we'd come together and talk about it. And it gave us a lot of momentum. So it kind of built up our confidence to eventually flip our very first house. So that was the first real estate investment thing that we did together. It went well. We had every single worst case scenario that we had possibly thought of.
And
And
you stayed married.
we stayed married. It
And you stayed
worked.
married through it.
Yeah, we didn't, we really didn't, there weren't too many fights, I don't think. I mean, that was over 10 years ago, so maybe we did. I'm sure we probably did, but it was neat too because our dad, so Ashton and I's dad, got to help with the remodel. So it's a special,
Oh,
we
wow.
have some pictures from that. So it's a very like special first real estate investment for a few reasons. So we did well. We made money on it. So that was great. It didn't kill our confidence. And so, but we didn't jump right back into another one. We both had jobs. Dustin was still building up real estate. And so we thought, well, if something else good comes along, we'll look at it. So eventually we ended up we flipped a few houses. We bought our first rental property a few years later after we sold that house in Austin. So that was our first rental. We eventually kind of long-term flipped that as well, pushed that back into an Airbnb that we ran for a few years. So that was
You put that money from that sale into the Airbnb. Is that
Yep. Yeah.
so? That rental there, what street was that on? The rental that y'all flipped eventually?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember.
Is that the one that Luke was a part of? We were talking about this the other day.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'll tell a little bit of that story. So for a while, so Luke, my son, when he was 12, he's 18 now. So when he was 12, he read Rich Dad Poor Dad on his own. He wanted, I think one summer, he wanted to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so he read it and started becoming excited about real estate. And I think the timing works out. So I guess that's about 7 years ago. But about that time we were talking about real estate. I had not invested. I had not flipped at all. I wasn't a real estate agent at the time. You guys were really doing that business. Mom and dad were flipping, and Luke was interested. And so you guys were super sweet. And so talk a little bit about, I don't even really know the decision that went into it, but talk about what y'all did for Luke on that house there.
So I guess it was for his birthday or for Christmas.
Yeah.
One year we said, oh, it'd be fun to give him ownership of the home. So it keeps him invested. Then we can kind of talk about with him. Dustin said, we'll do once a year, kind of go over the numbers. It's a good way to learn. It makes him feel invested in the property. And so I think it was, what did we do? 0.5%?
I think 0.5% or 1%. Yeah, it was enough, and it was enough to matter, and I think when y'all eventually sold, he made some money. And I don't know that it accomplished. Yeah, I think y'all met a couple of times, and with kids, they sort of ebb and flow with their interests. And so,
Okay.
he didn't all of a sudden start doing y'all's taxes for you, but he was interested,
Yeah, it's a fun, something neat. Hopefully that he remembers that.
Yeah.
It's a cool way to get kids involved. And poor Allie is probably like, I'm waiting on my percent.
We'll have to work on that. Yeah.
But yeah,
she hasn't expressed interest yet. We'll have to make that a prerequisite. She has to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad this summer. And maybe if she does that, the next project that one of us does, we can put her in on that. So.
Yeah. So that was that. So then it was cool because then when we sold it, we are like, hey, Luke, 0.5% of ownership. I remember it was close to $1,000 that he made on it.
$750 or something like that.
Yeah,
it was a lot of money for him. Yeah.
That's a lot, for a high schooler at the time. So yeah, that was cool. So while we were doing all this flipping, actually on that very first flip that we did, I started looking for a stager to stage our home. I could not find a stager that I really liked. So Dustin and I talked a lot about it. I said, what if I just staged this? We took out half of our furniture out of our own home. So we didn't have a dining table. I don't know if we had a couch. We didn't have a few things in our house for like 2 months. And all of our friends knew that we were flipping. They're like, oh, sorry. All of our furniture is actually out of flip right now, but we'll hopefully get it back. So that's something, that we learned. Just like you got to kind of piece it together at first and try to make it work. So I got photos made from that flip, and then I used those photos on my website. And from there, it kind of took off from the very beginning, which was great.
Was that Beckett Design? Is that when you decided to?
Yeah. And I did design as well. So I didn't do as much design as I do now. I had a few projects here and there. I actually had a pretty cool Central Austin project at the time. I didn't realize how good of an opportunity that it was at the time. It was a long time ago, but it was a cool project. It was a master bedroom add-on in this really cool neighborhood in Central Austin with a couple that was my age, actually. So it was a neat project.
Nice.
That one of the builders brought me onto it. So that was cool.
Did you grow up doing design or go to school for it, or is it just a passion that you kind of started doing with your own stuff, and then that kind of projected you forward?
Yeah. So no, I didn't grow up. We didn't, my parents weren't hiring a designer. Their friends weren't hiring an interior designer. So I didn't know much about it. In college, I did have some thoughts of maybe I think I could do that, but I just never, I think if someone, I just didn't have opportunity to decorate anything when I'm a kid. You're a kid, basically.
Right.
Mom didn't consult you when she did the wallpaper border in the kitchen, whatever that was.
Baskets or whatever. No.
Fruit basket wallpaper border.
Yes,
sorry,
true.
Mom. She also listens. I'm sure it looked great at the time. But
Yes,
let's just say whenever we renovated, that was one of the things that we wanted to get rid of. But.
So it's hard when you're that young to know, unless if you have a mom or a friend. For me personally, I just didn't have experience with it. I wish I would have known at the time. I actually was dating a graphic designer, and when I was thinking about it, he said, oh, you can't take these art classes. You have to take art, and they're really hard. And so for me, I thought, okay, well, yeah, I'm not an artist.
Dream crusher.
Do that.
He was threatened by you.
Go vacuum something. You can't do this hard work. You can't draw.
Yeah. It's intimidating thinking about, but I think it's kind of like, oh, they're interior designers. They're not that good, but you are in classes with other people that are truly artists. So that can be, intimidating, but no, I didn't go. I don't have any formal training. But luckily people don't ask you that whenever they just see your stuff in your house and all that.
Sure.
And, when you have it, you got it. And so, yeah. So no formal training.
That's awesome. Well, you've done really well. I've seen a lot of your stuff. So,
Thanks.
obviously I don't have any formal training either with my stuff. So,
You do a great
I don't think it's about that. I think it's just, it's something you have a passion for, and you learn by design, and the more you do, the more you learn,
Mhm.
I think that's evident in what you've been able to build and grow out of that. And I think for people listening, that's sometimes it just takes that driving force, and I don't know how many times I've met or seen somebody that actually did have a degree or came out of school with that. And sometimes you're a little hesitant on working with them because it is very textbook based, right? Or they have a very limited, uh, you know, you know, history of scale, if you will, to apply it to real application, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so sometimes, having that experience is way more valuable, I think, than any kind of education. But it is cool. I mean, if you can go and get educated and
Mhm.
progress through that, then, by all means. But, people like us didn't have that opportunity, so
Yeah.
Well, now the
something you find a
portfolio
passion
is
for and grow with, and you
Right.
learn so much more being in the field and learning from, other people and just different, just different things you learn over the years. Like you said, you didn't really find a stager that you felt comfortable with or felt like, made you go, wow.
Mhm.
It was more of like, okay, it works, but in your mind, you were able to do better, and I think that's important to understand. That's same thing with me when I started doing architectural drawings and design. I went through probably 3 or 4 different architects until I found one that really impressed me, and
Mhm.
then I was like, oh wow, like, okay, you're doing stuff that I didn't think about or know about, or
Right.
just a different approach, and now I'm learning from you, and now we're collaborating versus the other ones. I felt like, what am I paying you for, and
Right.
it was quite the journey to kind of get on that path to find somebody that I could, you know actually learn from, right? And in that sense, and that's kind of arrogant to say because I didn't have that formal training either,
Right.
but
No, I
being
think
in the field over the years and just, having an eye for what I wanted or what I wanted something to look like, and then just trying to figure out how to get it, you know, out of your brain to paper, right? Or out of your
right.
brain to reality is part of the challenge, right?
Yeah. And I love seeing all your stuff. Your style would go really well in Austin. The mid-century modern style is really big here, especially in central Austin.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, thank you.
but I'll have to come up for that tour. Sounds really cool. The home tour.
yeah, I
So
bet they have
Absolutely.
something like that in
Yeah.
Austin. If we'll have to pay attention because if they have that, that'd be a fun weekend trip to come check out the Austin version of stuff. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, they have modern home tours and they have a few different things that they host
Yeah.
here.
There's some really good builders that I follow in Austin,
Mhm.
that do that, the mid-century modern inspired builds and design and stuff that,
yeah,
just stuff that money no object hanging off of the cliff overlooking,
Lake
Lake
Austin.
Travis and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So early
Yeah,
on,
and Lake Austin as well.
so remind me where in this, because I think there was a specific post that you did that kind of gave you confidence
Mhm.
to say, "Hey, I think people like my style." Where in this was that, and what was that? How did all that play out?
It was actually really early on, and knowing what we know now, it went viral, I guess is what you call it. But so we redid our bathroom at our very first home in our North Central Austin house. It was a cute bungalow, 1960s bungalow, and it was the original. I think it was pale pink or pale yellow. Um, the square tiles, and so
Mhm.
a lot of people actually in the neighborhood on the Facebook page were not super thrilled that we ripped out the tile because there's a lot of original Austin people. You're like, no, don't ruin the. I was like, sorry
Oh, the
that we,
purist.
yeah, yeah, I know. So we redid the bathroom, and I had a friend come over. She wasn't even taking photos of the bathroom, but I said, "Hey, can you come over here and snap a couple of pictures? I'm starting a blog, and I'm gonna upload them." I think it was my very first post on my blog. I'm not kidding. This thing went viral. I uploaded it on Pinterest, and it went crazy. It got picked up by country Living, the Country
Wow.
Living magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So they messaged me, and I was shocked. At this point, I hadn't done any design for anybody. I was just doing stuff that I thought was fun. So what happened was, right at that time, it was Joanna Gaines. She was doing all the shiplap, all the white shiplap.
Mm-hmm.
That was real popular. It was 2013 or maybe 14.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to paint the shiplap like a navy color, a kind of blue navy, instead of doing white. Well,
Yeah.
apparently a lot of people weren't doing that because that's what caught a lot of people's attention. And so that went crazy. They did social media posts. They pinned it a bunch on their Pinterest. And then, so it essentially went viral. So that did give me a lot of confidence. Like, okay, maybe I do know what I'm doing, because it wasn't a big bathroom. It was pretty relatively small. So from there, I started thinking, okay, maybe I could do this for other people. And the more I did stuff, the more people noticed and kind of gave me that confidence, which I'm still, I think as a creative, there's always that, sometimes there is that lack of confidence at times where it's like, is this right? I think sometimes you can have moments of feeling either like an imposter or, it's just ever evolving, the trends and everything. So it's nice to have feedback that people like this bathroom, it gave me that initial confidence.
Sure.
Yeah, we've had
When
that
you have to
conversation
have
with
that. Yeah, I was going to say, are you going to the Walter conversation with
Wally.
that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we talked to Walter, which is funny. That little side note, I did that
I know.
reel. I did that reel this week. I'm like, oh, Walter. There's not one person under the age of 65 named Walter. And like, as I'm editing, I'm like, wait a minute. I know a Walter that's under 65. I feel like such an idiot. So anyway, sorry, Walter. Sorry, Wally. But when Walter was on, we had this conversation about creative. He owns an ad agency here in Dallas. And we had that conversation about, when do you know it's done? How do you know you're confident? You're putting yourself into all these things. There's a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor. And I think what he said is, basically it just takes time and you finally find your style. And the great thing about now with social media, and I think we even talked Jessica Starr about this, is when you have a portfolio that people can see and then they are coming to you because they like your stuff, at least you're not having to educate from scratch. They can say, hey, I really like that kitchen. There's a design language that they can use, and it's your design language that you've done, which I think does sort of, it just kind of builds and builds and builds. And so I know, kind of going toward your business and how you've evolved, you started out staging, and I want to kind of hear how you grew that. But I know some of the struggles have been kind of based on feedback and customers. Do they like this? Do I want to do a job where I just kind of go do my thing and then I leave? Do I want to do design work where it's actual doing big projects for people? So talk about kind of your thought process and how that's evolved from, really going all in with staging into how it's kind of morphed into what it is today.
Yeah, I think, one of the nice things with staging is it was good and bad. So you had all the furniture, you had your website. That's kind of what they're going to get. There's no real, I'm not going to go out and buy all new furniture just for one staging. They kind of know exactly what they're getting. There's no one there when you're installing, it's a quiet house. It's not personal. I mean, it is, but it's not. Usually the realtor's hiring you, and pretty much always people were happy because they would see pictures. They knew exactly what they were getting. So that was a lot easier as far as, the design side. So yeah, I think it's been better lately with, I've been doing a lot more remodels, and for my personality and my style and all that and my background, remodels have been a better fit. I think for me personally, I've taken on some smaller projects, but, it was hard at first starting design. Well, my very first job was a 5,000 square foot house actually in Prosper, in that beautiful neighborhood. I can't remember the name of that big neighborhood.
Told me what it's not Savannah. What
Lake something. I don't know.
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but yeah, I don't think I've actually been to that neighborhood, but I remember you sending pictures and talking about it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the neighborhood because the architecture, it's real traditional. It's real nice. But that was a huge project to start on my very first One, because I was ordering furniture and all that. And so, yeah, it's just I think what Tavis or someone said is just the older you get and the more projects you do, you're less attached personally, I think, to the projects. And so just really trying to figure out your clients and what they're wanting. And the past 6 months, I feel like the people coming to me came to me because they like my stuff. And it wasn't just a random, like, oh, I heard you do design and can you help me? I got to.
Have you heard of Joanna Gaines?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So
Please
it's
not. No.
Yeah. I know. She has, I will say, she's gotten a little bit more modern, kind of. I don't know.
Her
Maybe not.
design
I haven't
language has
seen.
evolved.
I haven't seen any of her stuff in many years now. We
Yeah,
used to
she's
just
not
say, "Are you Chip and JoJo in it?" Is what we used to,
Yeah.
just call it. And they got so much pushback, obviously, in like the mid-century realm, because I think they did one home that was like a true MCM in Waco.
Put
and
shiplap up.
Oh yeah, they
And a barn
countrified
door.
it, man. It was like, they changed the whole front entry of it, and I mean, just
Yeah.
completely destroyed the architectural style of the home. And
Right.
so from that point on, in the mid-century social media world, everybody was like, "Oh
Yeah.
God, don't chip and JoJo it."
Yes.
They did some. I mean, I used to watch their show because it was interesting, and they did a really good job. And of course, they were one of the first ones that were pushing out 3D renderings and stuff like that before it
Yeah.
was very popular. And so it was interesting to see. And I mean, I feel like they did a really good job. And again, it was kind of adapting to what people were doing. The biggest question mark was, when you see it was their budget and their breakdown, and then like, oh wait, are they doing the whole house, or are they just doing this part, or it was all
Right.
those unknowns from somebody that was active in the space doing it. And you're like, there's
Yeah.
no way you did that for 50,000 or whatever the number was,
Right.
So
And it's hard when a client calls you and then they have these there are a lot of people.
unrealistic expectations.
TV, and you're going, well, that didn't include labor. So that's another 30%.
I think it's important to, I always try to follow whatever that the architectural design is giving me, right?
Good.
Within reason. I mean, if I can work with it, modify it some, like, we've talked about Ashton's client, Aaron, on here, this Canyon Creek home, and it was a, Tudor style built back in the 70s. And he really had this idea of this modern, very urban modern feel with the the spine back open staircase, and the whole 9 yards. I'm like, that's not going to work here. Like we could do it, but it's going to stick out like a sore thumb, so it's important for me to find styles that adapt to the home, to where it's not something that's completely not going to fit, right? And then the styles change, right? Like we've talked about it before. For me, I get a lot of inspiration and things from hotels I visit, or resorts, and restaurants and things like that, because when they choose a design, they've got to forward think that design is going to have to be around for at least 10, 15 years, unless you're in a Starbucks. It seems like they have a budget to change every 2 years or something.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, they're doing remodel again? Like, wait, they just did that,
That is a good thought to look at that. And I didn't think about the longevity of the design. That's a good point. I mean, I love looking at, that's what I call myself a bougie traveler, because I like to go to all the boutique hotels and see. Yeah. It's for that reason.
Y'all have been to Hotel Emma?
And a lot of times
have y'all been down in San Antonio?
Was it?
Have y'all been to Hotel Emma in San Antonio?
Yeah. Yeah, you told us about a long time ago.
That's right. I've been trying to convince Tavis to go there. They should give me a commission.
there.
I mean, I've told a lot of people to go to Hotel Emma. At this point, I should be getting something from it. But I love that place because it has a design. It actually has a real design language,
For instance, like it's been hotels and restaurants for me of mixing metals, right? That used to be a no-no. It was like, your metals in the house need to all be the same. And, starting to see that trend in some of these commercial environments. It's like, no, it works. You can make it
They
work.
actually say that's a luxury look now, which is funny. They say
really?
Is a high-end look, which is so funny, because for so long, I don't know if you see this, Tavis, but one of the biggest hurdles, I think, for people to get over is they want everything to match. And that may just be my clients. But all the funny things that people hear about design, these design rules that they've heard from like their mother-in-law or whatever, it's like, okay, let's go outside of, because someone told me one time, well, my mother-in-law told me that like the bedroom and the paint in the bedroom has to match the paint color in the bathroom in the same, in the like primary, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
we don't have to have all these rules. Like, let's take the rules away and let's really try, you try to push them to get a little bit outside because it falls flat
Yeah.
if it just all looks the same tone, the same color. So I mix a lot of metals.
Well, it's fun to, I mean, and now I've been doing this for, 15 years from the fix and flip. And I've done, all of my own design and work over the years, and, doing that and trying to stay a little bit in front of whatever the current trend is. Right. So, in 2013 was when we started going grays and whites, and everybody was still in the beige and the safety colors, and, from what was, back in the first decade of the 2000s. And so we were one of the first kind of like investors that were pushing that. And it was, it reacted really well. I mean, people were jumping on them and they were selling, 1-2 days on market because it was something they hadn't seen and it was something trending. But again, you go back, that was already kind of taking place in hotels, and it was taking place in restaurants and things trending in that direction. And then, a couple years ago, about 2021, I went to stayed at a place called Unico in Mexico, and it was brand new. It's owned by the Hard Rock, but it was an adults only resort, and it had a lot of earth tones, a lot of travertines. So it was kind of mixing the stuff that you saw in the first decade, but then it had, more modern things, and it had some woven fixtures and things like that. But it was kind of like just a blending of these styles, but it had this very, in fact, they named it, one of the designers got on there and, was talking in the advertising on the TV running. And she said, this style we came up with, we call it relaxed modern. And it clicked with me. And I was like, dude, this is awesome. So I brought it back in one of our midterm rentals. That was kind of my inspiration to go in there and play that. And it becomes, as Ashton says, more of a masculine feel, and it kind of has that, but it's still soft enough to where it's welcoming and inviting. And that's the kind of response I've gotten out of it. So that was something new that I pushed myself to go do. And even my wife, when she first saw it, and she's one that has to see the whole thing put together. And when she walked it after I believe I painted the ceiling, urban bronze and stuff. And she walked in, she's like, oh, I don't like that. I'm like, just wait. And then once it all came together, it's like, oh, wow, it's super cool. But,
it feels relaxed and modern.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest struggles, like when I'm doing flips, is like trying to do things that are creative within a budget, to kind of push, to push the element or do something that, is a little different than the last project, or, just little tweaks. A lot of times I'm sticking with the same basic colors and things like that, but I might go a little bit different. Or, for instance, I'm excited right now. I've got a house that was built in the 70s. And I think I told Ashton about this, and it has a conversation pit, and it's not exactly like laid out the way that I would design it today. But because it has it, and it has kind of this stage built up, so it's kind of funky. In a perfect world, I would probably take it all out if I could, but it's not, cost, it's not cost rewarding to do that. And so the idea of some of the comps is they've actually filled in the fire, or the fire pit, the conversation pit. And in my case, I'm like, I can work with this. So I called up my upholsterer guy, and I'm like, hey, how much to do this? And so anyways, it's kind of cool because it's not a true mid-century, and it's more of a track home that's been done a few times. But, I've got some ideas that we're going to do to make it work. And I think it'll hit. It's still kind of a lower budget home, so it's not something you can go crazy with. Right. It's got like a $400,000 price tag on it. So it's that first time home buyer, but it's trying to, like, instead of those things that make you scratch your head and people that have never seen a conversation pit before walk in and go, what is this? To something that's like, oh, this is cool. You know, like, oh, I can see using this. I can see drinking wine here. I can see, having this conversation area, where people now have, we're starting to see trends getting away from some TVs, right? I'm seeing more and more clients lately that are like, I don't want a TV in my main area.
Yeah.
Right.
I want it more of a
Well, that
lounge
whole home tour,
conversation area.
that mid-century home tour, there's a not outside of that one where they did the man cave down the Texas basement. The almost all of them had those framed. Megan, do y'all have the frame TV?
No, but that's if we get a TV in our living room, that's the only approved TV. It's so really cool too, and it's so realistic. And then you can kind of change the art. It's really cool.
We change the art, and then you put a few pieces of art on the other side of it that's framed out the same. So then when you do have your art on, it really does look like an art wall. It's really, really neat. But I was going to tell you, Tavis, that one of the things Megan mentioned the other day that she might do, I think y'all are doing a flip right now, right? You just sold one and you have one going, correct?
Yep.
Are you doing the LED light for the first time, maybe?
Oh, I am. Yeah. So the
bathroom one.
I was going to tell y'all too, this is something kind of cool, similar, but different to what Tavis was just talking about that I'm excited about. It's something small, but I do feel like it's going to be so different because it's a Trek home and it's a 90s. It's just like a 1990s home, but it's 30 years old. And so anyways, we decided the shower's really small. And so we're taking out it's this massive tub and it's way too cumbersome. It's taking up too much space. So we're taking out the tub and we're going to move the shower over to where the tub was. So where the shower was, we're going to make a makeup kind of vanity area station and then put in one of those big LED Vegas type mirrors, which you said you use those a lot. And then we're also going to I'm excited about this. So we ripped out just the drywall linen closet that most bathrooms have in the corner. We ripped that out. So I got, there's a 4 hands black and glass, or it's a metal and glass black, cabinet, and it has drawers, and then the top part is kind of an open glass shelving area for your towels. So we're going to put that in the middle, and then we're going to flank 2 vanities on either side, and then the shower will be at the end. So it's going to just be a different look for, instead of just keeping the kind of ugly drywall linen closet, we thought let's rip this out, and then it will look so much more interesting, and it'll be so different from anything in the neighborhood, and it's functional. So it's got a few drawers, and you can put your towels or whatever you want in there. And so I'm really hoping that that'll draw attention.
Absolutely.
It'll look great in pictures for sure. Four Hands is the store that I sent you, Tavis. I went down there and walked their showroom. It's an amazing showroom. Who do they supply? They supply some big names, right?
Whetstone, Pottery Barn, any of the big ones. They
have a direct showroom there in Austin, Four Hands. And their stuff is amazing. They have some great art, great pieces. But Tavis, I was trying to tell, have y'all already wired for the light, Megan? I know y'all were kind of debating on.
We did, yeah. We ended up putting electricity, on the back part where it'll be plugged in. And but I didn't know if is it usually recessed or is it just a regular outlet?
Yeah, usually if there's a box, I mean, usually it's just hardwired. It's hardwired versus plug in. They do make them where they can plug in, but typically I just hardwire them all. When I do that, and for me, I do like doing it because it kind of eliminates, especially in smaller ceilings, it eliminates having to have that vanity light above it or, sconces. And it just simplifies it. As long as you have another source of lighting in the bathroom as well, a couple can lights or something, I think it's really cool. I think they're really cool in like powder bathrooms too, right? Like where I'm seeing a lot more, effort to dress up or make a powder bathroom, kind of something that stands out versus, in years past, I think powder bathrooms are just overlooked. And now it's like, again, think about hotels and bathrooms and restaurants and things. Like if that's where your main guests are going, make it kind of cool and funky or dark. And, I painted, I actually went like a mauve tone on that one that we did in Wiley last time. That was kind of a little etchy, I was like, all right, let me push my color palette a little bit.
I like that one.
And it turned out really cool. I mean, just doing that kind of shade of pink in there, right? Which is like, just something different. And it
Yeah.
got,
What
great
paint color
feedback,
did y'all
obviously.
do there? So Tavis, to describe Meagan and Dustin's house, yours is sort of an approachable masculine. I would say Megan's style is an approachable feminine because it does have a feminine sort of bend to it, but it's not
Sure.
so over the top where it's just sort of like a middle finger to any male that walks through the front door. It's like it does feel pretty good, So, but their powder bath there in the hallway, what color did you use on that? Because it's pretty dark, right? You hear me,
Are you talking to Megan?
I
Megan?
think sorry,
Yeah.
say it again.
Oh yeah,
Fred.
no, sorry, at y'all's house. So at your house, the powder bath there in the hallway, it's
Uh-huh.
really dark. That paint.
Yep.
Do you remember the color that you used there?
It's Thunderous, I think. Sherwin-Williams. I almost said Southwestern.
Okay.
Sherwin-Williams. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty dark, and that whole
Great.
bathroom looks really cool. Cool
Thanks.
old, kind of old school horse, like I think a horse painting, and
Uh-huh.
then just some of the finishes in there. But it's a tiny little bathroom, but it does have that hotel feel.
Yeah,
And
that's
the
awesome.
cost that you're putting into it is really minimal, but it really does make a cool memory of this different bathroom. And I've seen a lot of them that are going over the top with the super bold wallpaper everywhere, which I think would be really cool as well. So let's talk a little bit about Meagan. I know just as we kind of not wrap up, but you morphed from a really successful staging business in Austin. You sold it to somebody. You sort of dabbled with the design world and doing private clients, and now you guys are really leaning into the remodels. So just talk a little bit about what the actual projects y'all are working on and sort of the volume and what you sort of see for the next year or two, where y'all are trying to go. Because y'all, we haven't mentioned, but y'all have rentals in Abilene. You
Mhm.
you just sold your Airbnb in Pflugerville. So not only do you do design stuff, but y'all are legit investors, and y'all have really dabbled and done great with a lot of different parts of the investing world. So talk about y'all's portfolio right now and maybe where y'all are going to be going in the near future.
Yeah. So the portfolio in Abilene, Dustin does a lot of that. I don't have a lot to do with that. I'll throw out paint colors and stuff when they're looking to sell a rental or flip. I did get to go up and visit, and it was interesting. It's there's triplexes and all the things, and so it's just kind of it's different from how we're doing here. We're doing these kind of higher end flips and things like that. So it's neat to see all different levels of the real estate investing. So I'm not as involved in Abilene, but here we had an opportunity basically given to us about 6 months ago. One of Dustin's, he's actually our private lender. His uncle had passed away, and he said, "Hey, I don't want to mess with this. Can we make it work to where, would you be interested in flipping it?" And we hadn't really, we're like, yeah, this is in our wheelhouse. We hadn't thought like we should be doing this more. So at the time we had partnered with Dustin's sister and brother-in-law, and there's 4 of us. We're all very well versed in construction. So they own they're builders. They own a construction company. So it was a great partnership because we all kind of collaborated, worked together, and then it worked out. We made money. And one of the worst times to be selling real estate, which was like August in Austin this year, it's been slower. Real estate's been slower. So I do think our private money guy was even kind of impressed. Like, I can't believe y'all made money, when things are sitting and everyone's saying that it's hard to sell right now. So I do think that's important, for the lender to see like how much we're hustling and working, and he has a lot of faith in us. And so fast forward, we started talking about it. We're like, well, we made this much on it, and it took about 3 months, and well, we can do it on the side, or, it goes along with my business. So if I'm out running, looking at tile for a client, it's great because then I can source at the same time, which is awesome. They're not paying me hourly for any clients out there
Sure.
wondering. It's a flat fee. So anyways, so then we thought, let's ramp it up and really try to, because this is everything within flipping is what we're good at. Dustin's great at the acquisition. He can do the real estate side. I can do the design side. And so we thought, let's really try to pursue this more. So this year we've tried to, we got under contract recently on 2, and we both got so overwhelmed during the option period. We thought, let's scale it back. We thought we were going to scale up more this year, but I think we're just trying to slowly figure out our systems, work on who's handling what, because I am handling a number of the vendors and the trades and stuff. So just really trying to figure out our system, and then we would like to ramp it up. So the idea is to do 3 or 4 this year with Dustin and I, and then our in-laws actually flip as well. So we partner with them. They handle everything, but we partner with them, and he finds the deal, and then he'll list them and do all the real estate stuff for them. So we're hoping they do about 3 or 4 this year. So that's the goal. So we're on flip number 2, and then pretty soon we'll start looking for another one. It's just we have young kids, and so we thought, we'll do 10 this year. But then once we got into it, we really want to be able to have a solid base and a solid structure before we start throwing in a ton of flips, so it's not completely chaotic. And and we have time to hang out with the kids this summer and stuff like that. So we're excited.
Y'all tried the Airbnb thing. Y'all had an Airbnb in Pflugerville for 3 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Is that right? Y'all y'all bought a new build with the intention of maybe moving into it. They had a really cool property in Austin, and it had just it was more, the part of town was good, but it was sort of going a little homeless chic for a while, where there was just homeless people walking through the neighborhood pretty frequently. And he's like, maybe not. And so they were thinking about, they bought this house in Pflugerville, but they turned it into this Airbnb. So just talk briefly. I mean, Airbnbs are one of those, it's just a little, Tavis does the midterm and is really successful with that, but y'all were pretty successful with the short term. It just got to where it was a little bit more work than y'all were wanting to do, right?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I was handling everything. So I was doing all the inquiries, which wasn't terrible, but it's just like one other thing on my plate of things to do, and as a mom I'm room mom. There's a lot of mom stuff that I do as well. And so once we started flipping, I had thought, oh my goodness, I've got to take one thing off the plate, and we could use the equity that we had in the Airbnb to put towards our flipping. And that was kind of where we were shifting towards anyways. And so it was fine. I mean, I didn't love it as much as I thought that I would, just because, I don't know. I didn't like it as much as I thought. We weren't making that much money, but we were paying the rent down, which is great. It's not people act like you're going to become a millionaire overnight with Airbnb. And that's just not the case, unless if you, buy 10 at a time in 2005 or whatever, or whatever it was.
Yeah, the gross numbers look great, right? Like your monthly rent, everybody gets so caught up, or your nightly rent, or your week, whatever, your income is, it looks really good, right? Like it's, everyone gets very sticker shocked when you throw out those numbers, but what they don't see is, what you're paying in turnover fees and cleaning fees and utilities and, maintenance and, if you're changing out linens and things like that. And all those things add up.
I don't know what you do, but we had actually hired we tried to go above and beyond, so we had a laundry service that would come, because the turnover, it's a lot for your cleaning ladies, because we had 8 beds in the Airbnb. So if you have just one set of washers and dryers, that's not something you necessarily think about when you're buying an Airbnb, but you can.
Sure.
That's a lot of time, because we're also washing the covers too. You're not just washing the sheet, also the bedspreads. And so those are heavy and they take a while to dry. So we thought, we found this laundry service that, if we hadn't done that and done other things, we were clearing about $1,000 a month. So at that time, it was like, okay, this is great. This works. It's, it's a good little amount coming in. But then something happened. Airbnb changed their algorithm. I swear it changed a lot of stuff. And a lot of people on the Facebook groups were saying, like, my bookings have dropped off a cliff. And so after that happened, it just seemed like, and also with the Airbnb, we stopped ranking high. And so we had to keep dropping our prices to rank higher. So we just felt like we kind of got pushed a little bit out into where we were hardly making any money at that point, just between less bookings, and maybe we were doing something
What was
wrong.
your demand? Like, what were the people that were coming into Pflugerville? What were they coming to stay for? Like, what was your demand for something like that?
It was a lot of random, just graduations. We were close to a big sports complex called Old
Okay.
Settlers in town, and there was a family that came in for their daughter's UT graduation. There's weddings. They think there was maybe a wedding at the house. That was the whole thing. A lot of bachelor parties, and then we have a ton of stuff here. There's F1, there's
Sure.
ACLs a few weekends. So between all that, because Pflugerville is pretty kind of far out, it's about 25 minutes outside of Austin. So, but you're right by a major highway that can
Mm-hmm.
get you right into Austin. But that was the other thing too. For a long time, I was really trying to push Dustin to sell Airbnb so we could get another place that was where we could utilize it. Eventually we would like to have, I wouldn't mind doing, a vacation rental somewhere where we can go use it, some weekends and then
Yeah.
rent it out and offset the cost. Just because I
Sure.
think that is a great idea. That's kind of a different approach, but the way that we were using it and the way we started moving more to flipping, it just was kind of like, okay, I think this is done here. We don't even get to use it for a fun thing. So we'll flip for now, and then maybe later
Go on
we'll
a weekend vacation to Pflugerville.
it's very
Hop over
exotic.
to Hutto for some barbecue. Yeah, that's not really a thing that most people sign up for. They were looking to go down to Cinnamon Shores, which is a master plan community down in Galveston. Looks really, really cool. Y'all
It's
ended up
beautiful.
not getting that vacation spot down there, but I think it is a neat. What's interesting, and I know you listen to Josiah's podcast, but he kind of has a different take on it, and he doesn't really particularly care for his vacation spots up in the Smokies. He's there just for investment, and his
Okay.
take is go someplace that is really good on return, and
Right.
use the money you make to go on whatever vacation you want, and then you're not really tied into, hey,
Yeah.
we're going to the Smokies again because we have a house. And then if it's a good rental, every time you go there, you're unplugging it from the market, and you're
Right.
really not staying for free. You're foregoing the rent that you could have gotten there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I thought that was a pretty interesting thing that because I had the same thought of, oh, I'd love to have a Colorado house because I'd love to go to Colorado every once in a while. But the
Yeah.
way he talks about it is like, look, it's a business. Go somewhere that's going to make a lot of money. Use the money to go on vacation wherever you want. And he doesn't particularly care for the Smokies, which I thought was funny. So
Yeah, that is
Um,
a good point.
yeah, Tavis, you got any more questions for Meagan or?
So Megan, just going back to, I guess, one of the things I see, the conflicts I see, especially like, I do a lot of design work for, properties out at a lake nearby here. It's about an hour and a half southeast of here called Cedar Creek Lake. And so what I see a lot of is we'll do the design, we'll render it. I'll kind of, we'll go ahead and, design it with, schematics and paint schemes and the whole 9 yards. And then they'll hire a designer to come in and, and change it up. Right. And do it more of what they want. And I see it sometimes, just from, either they're following a trend or they're following, for instance, we did one, this was kind of a, modern style, like a 70s modern style home. And so we kind of played off of that and worked through it, kind of did the relaxed modern feel throughout. And then they came through, and I think it was partly what the homeowner wanted, but, they talked about doing it, like a coastal, I don't know, some kind of coastal finish, or whatever, they had a name for it, and flowery wallpaper and all the bathrooms and, stuff like that. I'm like, oh, gosh.
Shells.
What are you
Shell-oriented
doing to
decor.
this thing?
Yeah.
So to me, it just kind of conflicted with some of the architectural style. I think overall it'll probably be fine, but I mean, as far as that goes, I see that happen sometimes, and I'm like, oh man. The other big thing is I hear from my builders or from my GCs that, are referring me to do the job, from the architectural designs. And their biggest issue is back with the designer, right? And mainly because the designers aren't, ordering or making decisions up front soon enough to where things could be, pre-planned and, and here's what we're going with. This is the direction. Let's go. It seems like a lot of times there's like a lot of waiting periods of time, or they're waiting on the designer to come back and make decisions, or they're changing things. And it sounds like you've got a pretty good handle on how construction works and understanding the timelines, and I think that's probably what sets you apart from most of your competition. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, or some of those challenges you've faced over the years of competing with that, or trying to find that happy medium, because you are a piece to the puzzle. But sometimes your piece to the puzzle kind of comes after a lot of the major work is done, right?
Yeah, it can be hard coming in after the fact, because then, you can't drop, if you want to do sconces, it's harder to come back in after the fact, after they've already done the electrical, and, it's more expensive. I guess as far as some of the projects that I've been taken on, it can be frustrating. What I've seen, some of it is that people will go rogue, and sometimes it feels like you're not hurting cats, but it's like, it's hard with the internet. People can go online and they may find something and go, oh, I love this. And, and then it's like, wait, no, let's stick to this. And so that's a little bit more of a challenge for me, of maybe back to the confidence, or people having confidence in you. And so I haven't been in on projects from like ground up. I know it's a lot easier. It is funny. So if you're building a house, it's way easier to bring a designer on at the very beginning. Like you said, it'll be a lot less headache, a lot less work, I think, on the back end. You don't want to call someone once you're already kind of finishing up the play. Or I guess builders say that you always want to bring in a designer at the beginning. And there is that weird tension sometimes. I know sometimes the GCs don't really like the designers, because they have these unrealistic ideas of like, oh, let's do this, and we're going to rip out this whole wall and blah, blah, blah. And then the builder's going, no, that's too hard, or the GC. So that's also too kind of interesting, trying to, especially as a woman working with trades, and men sometimes they don't really like you coming in and telling you, what to do, kind of. We had one guy this was funny. When we built our second house, we didn't build it, but we ripped it down to studs. Anyways, this isn't necessarily what you're asking, Tavis, but it's a good story. The guy, the cabinetry guy, his name was Bub, B-U-B, and he was very country. I think Bub was from maybe Hutto, and from like a farm, and but he had good pricing.
Bub without the BA at the end, so he just shortened it. He's no longer Bubba. He's
Bub from
country, not even Bubba. He's Bub. And Bub did not like what I had to say. He was like, he thought, and I wasn't even being ugly at all. We had this meeting, and it was Dustin and I, and Dustin standing next to me, and I showed him a photo. I think it was like shaker cabinets. It was nothing, it was nothing crazy, but it was more like you said on the front end of these trends. That's what's hard too, sometimes working with trades, when it's like a new thing that hasn't been done a lot, and trying to figure it out and work through that and know how to do whatever you're trying to show them. It was shaker cabinets. It was nothing earth shattering, but I said, oh, we're going to do this, and showed him my drawings, and he looked at me, and then he looked at Dustin. He didn't say anything. He starts laughing, and Dustin said, oh, she's the boss. She's in charge. He kind of was like, I could tell Bub was very annoyed, maybe, that he thought I was being high maintenance, but I'm like, I'm just showing you my renderings. I figured that's easier than, but
right.
I feel like that can be a little interesting. And I know my sister-in-law gets a lot of pushback on like, oh, where's the contractor? And she's like, I am the contractor, I'm here to tell you. But once for our flips, we have great guys that they know eventually, like, okay, she's in charge, and she's the one to ask about.
They know who pays the bills. That's
I think it goes back, and Ashton, I've said this many times, throughout the podcast, but it sounds like, having your team, right? Having a team, having consistency, building that relationship, all those things are important for things to work well together and continue to grow, and going back to that, and just, grooming those relationships. I see some some investors out there I see, use that DFW investment page, which, it has got thousands and thousands of people on it. But I swear every time they go on there and they ask for some trade to do drywall or something, and it's like, I think they're just trying to get the best dollar. But I'm like,
Right.
that is extremely risky
Mhm.
to just randomly choose somebody and say, hey, give me a bid and I want this done
I mean,
tomorrow.
who picks
And
a random
I'm like,
sheetrock guy and just pays him a bunch of money to come do work?
I
What kind of idiot would hire someone off the street
off the street
named Ricardo?
If someone's knocking on your door looking for work, I think you've said that before. Don't hire them, because that means, along with that, with the relationships we love, so, some of our trades, it's like I would have them over. We should have them over for dinner. It's almost like, because they're basically your employee pretty much, not
Yeah.
full time, but it is neat to see, because I, as a woman too, it's like I want to know about your family and your grandkids. So I'll be like, oh, Alejandro, like, do you have kids? And so I got our tile guy. He was telling me all about his grandson. So it's neat to have that relationship. I think that really creates also, we're not doing it to be crazy or evil or like, oh, now they have to work for us, but it creates that loyalty. That's not why we're wanting to be friends with them, but it does create a sense of loyalty to where it's like they're going to do a good job. They want to, make you happy. If you make it a pleasant environment where you're not yelling at them and you're being, upfront and clear about what you want and being friendly, I think that can go a really long way.
Yeah. I was telling Aaron the other day about Tavis's guys. He's had a lot of the same guys for a while, and they all he's whittled them down to have a very similar personality to Tavis. They're all really laid back and, pretty nice, and they don't yell. And, they all if you would believe that they all kind of work for the same company, because they all, in my opinion, they all kind of work similarly, and they all kind of have a fairly similar laid back attitude. Tavis may think differently, but I think once you do start attracting that style of person. And I agree, and Tavis, they just did a GoFundMe for one of his contractors. His wife passed away. You do have that relationship with them, but you don't want to get so close that if it goes poorly, this is a bad. And then the other thing that I think Tavis has learned too is if you get too many of them that are related, if it goes poorly with one of them, you just lost half your crew. So if we actually went with the tile guy who knew the cabinet guy, and that got a little tenuous for a minute. So, well, Meagan, it's been awesome. Again, thank you so much for being a loyal listener. I mean, it's awesome to get the feedback. It's awesome to know the people that I care about the podcast. And Tavis, she definitely wants to meet at some point, because she knows a lot about your business at this point.
I know. I feel like you're friends. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, and I've met Dustin in the flesh. I have not met you in the flesh yet. So
we'll have to have, next time they're up in town, we'll have to go grab lunch or something.
We'll have to meet up for sure. But no, it's been a pleasure having you. Thanks for bringing a lot of, great information. I think this is something that, a lot of people get interested in. Sometimes, it's, people get sidetracked with it, right? Because design is one of those things, like you said, you can easily go down a rabbit hole in the internet and think, oh, I like this or I like that, or what's the trends, and, what should we do, or, second guess things. But, keep doing what you're doing and have fun out there.
Yeah. I'm excited. I love following your stuff and hearing all about it. So it's nice to have a fellow designer. Even I may have to pick your brain eventually on some of the programs and stuff that you use. So it's cool to always talk shop with other people that you design. So
definitely.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate both of y'all in my life. Gives me someone I can send my ideas to, because I'm on the internet late at night coming up with really cool designs for tile and paint. So
no yellow tile. I said no to that.
I think it would have been
absolutely
cool.
Not.
I think it'd been cool. Retro yellow 3x3 squares coming back. But no, we really appreciate it. So before you go, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to follow you, see some of your portfolio and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So on my Instagram, it's Westlyn, WSTLYN Interiors with an S. And it's the same for my website as well. So that's a good way to see projects and past projects.
Yeah. And I'll link it in the show notes, and we'll put it out on social and that sort of thing. So if you have not, please like, subscribe, send this to some friends. I think there's a lot of great information in here that everyone could learn from. And we are growing. We passed our 2,000 download marker. And so now we have 50 episodes and 2,000 downloads. And so we are creeping up there, and we have a really steady, very loyal listener base that we're all very appreciative of, just genuinely appreciative. The people who make it a point to listen in on a regular basis. But give us feedback. Tell us different things you wanted to hear about. If you know anyone in the business that would be a great interview, like Meagan Miksch, that is down in Austin.
It's all about you caught yourself.
Yeah, Meagan Hines is my sister. She did get married, but a while ago. But yes, then we definitely want to know about it. But until next time, we hope you have a great day.